Latest ad from Dan Branch for AG.
I'm Dan Branch. Let me tell you exactly what I'll do as Attorney General. I'll protect our border and oppose amnesty. I'll protect our children from online predators and go after deadbeat parents to ensure kids get the support they need. My 30 years of legal experience have prepared me for this responsibility. To fight for Texans against liberal, one-size-fits-all federal mandates like Obamacare. I'm Dan Branch. Texas is an exceptional place. As Attorney General, I'll fight to keep it that way.
There's Dan Branch on the television. Here's Dan on the phone. Morning, sir. How you doing?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great. Very, very nice to have you. All right, this is radio, so let me supply some of the visuals. This is a new ad. The one I've seen, and I saw it 500 times, so you clearly wanted to blanket it, was the Moment of Silence bill spot. We'll talk about that in a second. But this seems more of a general, here's a bunch of things I'll do. There's some wonderful visuals. You put what appears to be patrolling the ranch, fine weapon in hand. Where exactly is the Branch Ranch?
It's in Guadalupe County, near Seguin, actually closest to the metropolis of Geronimo, Texas, in Guadalupe County. Our family has had that for, I guess, over 30 years. And I grew up in San Antonio, as you know, and I spent my weekends and summers. My father thought it was important that I learn some of the lessons that he had learned growing up on a farm. And so we learned about square bales and putting them on a flatbed and putting them in a barn and working cattle and how to ride a horse. And so a lot of good values came from that experience.
So I'm noticing everybody's ad campaigns and nothing happens by accident. So take me sort of behind the curtain a little bit. Here it is, early voting, home stretch, a broad ad that's about a lot of things. The one, there was clearly the intent to run the one for weeks and run it hard. The Moment of Silence bill. You know, we had kids, the ability for kids to do some praying in school. I'm Dan Branch, and I did that. What made that important to make that a big part of the salvo during the last few weeks?
Well, we've tried to make this campaign about who I am and be authentic. We started at SMU Law School. We announced in the very room where I went through orientation to start my career as a lawyer. I'm the only one in my family for generations who's ever gone to law school and become a lawyer. And so when we talk about the Moment of Silence, that's something I did my first term. Mark came in and everyone said to leave it alone, that we'll never have prayer in school again. And worked with Greg Abbott as Attorney General and one of his young solicitors, Ted Cruz, and we not only passed it, but we did it in a way that was carefully crafted to withstand constitutional scrutiny, and we did. We won in the district court, federal district court, and in the Fifth Circuit. And to me, it's an example that I have the record of pushing back against federal power and winning, successfully pushing back and returning prayer to our schools. And today, 5 million kids in Texas will be able to say the prayer, but also say the Texas pledge, which we put in the bill, and the U.S. pledge.
Let's take a look at some of the other things you mentioned in the ad. You mentioned opposition to amnesty, which means the first thing we have to do is kind of define amnesty. At what level of looking the other way at folks? I mean, we got 12, 15, however many million folks who are here. A good chunk of those are in Texas. Where's the amnesty bar set for you, past which you can't go along?
Well, clearly we have the first job is to secure the border as one who's been briefed fairly recently by DPS and the Rangers, and as one who's voted to send hundreds of millions of dollars to local law enforcement support along our border for more troops and equipment and helicopters and boats. I mean, we have to shore up this border. This is one of the failings. We talk a lot about federal overreach and pushing back, and everywhere we turn, we've got this aggressive president, aggressive administration. But one of the things they haven't been aggressive on is fulfilling their national responsibility to secure our border or to uphold our international treaty with Mexico, make sure our farmers get their fair share of water. So for me, that's step one. Step two, obviously we are a rule of law state. Sure, we're a land of immigrants, so I'm into legal immigration, so I'm pro-immigration. And I hope that the federal government will move to make a real immigration bill, not the one that passed the Senate. So I'm opposed to that in many ways. But so to me, that's where we start. Second is the federal government needs to have a policy. And, of course, third, we've got to protect our state and do what we can because of this failure. And that's what the DPS is doing every day with their nearly 1,000 cameras along the border. And they are trying to protect us and work with the federal government to interdict the illegal crossings And so to me, that's where someone who seeks to aspire to be the Attorney General, to me, that's where I will start and look for ways to support our local law enforcement, local district attorneys, make sure we effectively use the Border Prosecution Unit at the AG's office to try and make up for the shortcomings of this administration.
Outgoing State Rep Dan Branch is looking to be the incoming Attorney General, and the website for Dan is danbranch.com. Just listening you describe DPS and funding for local law enforcement for something that we all agree is a federal responsibility, how should that pie be sliced? I mean, there's some folks who say it should be the federal government's responsibility. DPS and Texas cops should be looking at crime in Texas and not so much be Border Patrol agents. Where is that balance struck best in your view?
Well, the balance is that because of an unsecure border, we have, according to the DPS, numerous gangs. I think it's like something on the order of 22, and then 6 of the 7 drug cartels operating in Texas. So there's laundering operations going on in the Metroplex, and so it's not just border crossings, illegal border crossings, and the risk. It's border-related crime. So whether that's online predators, human trafficking, drug trafficking, all those issues come into our state as a result of an unsecure border. So, I mean, the failings of this federal government, as much as we all are really distressed by the aggressive overreach of the federal government and programs like Obamacare or the pushback on pre-clearance and Eric Holder's fight against even journalists, or the IRS fight against conservative groups, this dramatic failing that's costing us hundreds of millions of man and women hours for the DPS, all 150 Rangers assigned to either border crime or border-related crime in the state of Texas today.
You mentioned specifically in the ad online predators, one of the more modern incarnations of evil. How bad is it, and what can an attorney general do to fight it?
Well, this is an area that I think is one where the Office of Attorney General needs to expand its operations. The current Attorney General, Greg Abbott, has done an amazingly good job at starting this program and pushing back. I mean, I think we all know as technology becomes more and more a part of everyone's life, and the Internet becomes so pervasive, that we're going to have more and more crime related to this, whether it's stealing identification, whether it's this child pornography, whether it's using it for human trafficking. We saw, the revenge porn. So I think this is an area, along with healthcare fraud, that the office is going to have to ramp up to meet the level of misbehavior that's going to go on in our society as technology becomes more pervasive.
All right, always ask everybody the horse race questions. What does someone think about a race that they're actually in? There's Ken Paxton, whom you know, with fellow service in Austin. There's Barry Smitherman, whom you know as a Texas Railroad Commission. All of you are good guys. You've been kind of a traveling road show. You've done a lot of joint appearances. Is there a view, and I had him on just the other day, and I'll ask you the same thing. Is there a view that only you hold and a policy that only you would advance? There's obvious overlap. You're all Republicans. You're all conservative. But is there something that you bring policy-wise that is different than those other guys?
Well, I certainly come at it from someone who's practiced law. So my policy views are informed by not only my beliefs and values as a conservative, as someone who's grown up as a person of faith and a Christian, but I think also I've been trained as a lawyer. I had the chance to work for the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court right out of law school. I have 3 decades of legal experience, rated at the highest levels for over 20 years for both ethics and for my abilities. So I'm going to bring the private sector view of someone who's really practiced law. Some of my opponents have sort of dabbled in it or been in finance or consulting more than they have practiced law. So that's one difference. And I think the other is that I have a record mark of actually passing conservative legislation for the last nearly now 12 years. And I think people have seen that record. And so there's nothing about my campaign that's about an election year conversion. It's all about looking at whether it's requiring recorded votes in a constitutional amendment in 2007 that ended the practice of voice votes on final passage of bills that affected millions of Texans. You now have to have an accountable record, or whether it's returning prayer to schools, or whether it's balancing 6 budgets. I have a record leaving more money in the rainy day fund than we've ever had in the history of that fund the last 2 years. I've had my fingerprints over all the conservative legislation, gun rights, private property rights, life, tort reform for the last decade. And so for me, I think what distinguishes me is I have an ability and have shown a record of getting things done and successfully pushing back against federal power and sustaining it like we did with the moment of silence.
You came into House District 108 in what year?
A 2002 election and sworn in January of 2003, which was the first Republican majority since Reconstruction. And I felt like with the majority, we had a responsibility to get things done. I have not been someone who just sat on the back bench and voted no to everything. That's not the sort of conservatism I'm interested in. I'm interested in showing that our ideas work and that we can advance. And so look at the results. 1,400 people a day pouring into Texas because we're the last large state where there's a land of opportunity, low taxes, light regulations. I think the Attorney General has a responsibility to continue sensible regulation in this state.
DanBranch.com, running for Attorney General. Appreciate you, sir. Thanks a lot. Good health on the campaign trail. I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Okay.